surely you can come up with more than 5 true freshmen you're excited to watch this upcoming season. Well, Paul was probably watching the show a couple of weeks ago when it seems I identified right at 5 true freshmen. And Paul's point is, well, there are a little bit more than just 5 out there. Well, it was an opportune time to ask this question because Chris Hummer, who does about as good a work as anyone out there, Hummer is already a national name to me, but he should be to everyone. Follow him if you don't already, Chris Hummer. He put out 100 true freshmen to watch. While everyone else was watching the world burn to the ground, Jimbo versus Saban, Chris Hummer's just dutifully over there banging out 100 true freshmen to watch this year as part of 100 days until kickoff. We're only going to do like 6 here. But yeah, you want 5 and you want more than 5? I got you more than 5 here, Paul. Domani Jackson at USC. Somehow we did not talk about him already. Domani Jackson was the number 5, he's number 5 overall player, not just number 5 overall corner. 6'1", 190, 5-star corner. USC is losing multiple DBs to the NFL. But at the same time, it may not be a terrible thing because they were 112th nationally in pass D last year, according to PFF. So he's a different kind of player. Domani Jackson's the kind of guy that when he walks on campus, if you're a USC fan, you'll look at him and say, ooh, that guy looks like the guys that used to be here a lot more frequently than they have been under Clay Helton. Domani Jackson, even with the injury stuff he had his senior year, I highly suspect he'll be a contributor his freshman year. At LSU, there's another name to watch here. This is a guy we talked about a little bit in spring with the rotation on the offensive line. Will Campbell at LSU is a name to watch. That's a 4-star offensive tackle. He enrolled early, put on some good weight in spring. Shea Dixon and the guys down at Go 24/7, they documented this very, very well. About midway through spring, about 2 weeks in, Brian Kelly and that staff, I think, said, okay, we're thin at that position. I know he's a true freshman. He just got here like 10 minutes ago. Put him at left tackle. And they put him there, and he held his own. And they don't have a luxury of options there. So Will Campbell's going to have to pan out for them this year if they're going to have success on the offensive line. But they think he's good to go. They wouldn't have made that move in the spring if they didn't think he was good to go, even if they lacked options. They would not just throw him to the wolves in his second week or third week on campus. He's 6'6", about 310, and they have high hopes for him. He was very heavily recruited. So Will Campbell, that's a guy, for better or for worse on the overall offensive line, he's a guy they're excited about, and he's a guy that's probably going to contribute early. This next name, everyone knows. Walter Nolan. The A&M class is so loaded, we chose Evan Stewart the first time around. Walter Nolan was ranked number 2 in the nation overall. He was one of 7 defensive linemen ranked in the top 100 overall, wait for it, that signed with A&M. What you thought I may say there, if you don't pay attention to recruiting, is he was one of 7 defensive linemen that were rated in the top 100. Oh, it was a deep D-line class, huh? Yeah, and all of them signed with A&M. All of them. He's the best one out of all of them. He is 6'4", he's 325. There's no sloppy size on him. He's very advanced technically, very violent, very aggressive, but also he does not have a lot of looseness to his game. This is not an official scouting term. This is how I talk about defensive linemen. Sometimes these guys come out of high school and they're so big because God created them that way. And they have all the raw physical potential in the world, but it hasn't been honed. It hasn't been harnessed. So it's just loose. Walter Nolan, many things. Loose, not one of them. So I don't care how good they are already. Walter Nolan will be an impact player, eventually, if not immediately, for A&M. His pro comparison from our guys here at 24/7 was Dexter Lawrence at Clemson. I don't really think I need to tell you too much more than that. I'm going to stay in the state of Texas here, but we're not even going to nail it down to one person. We're going to go Texas, but just the entire offensive line class. And anyone who paid attention to spring practice knows that this has already been validated. The idea that the Texas O-line signing class is going to be impact in nature. Kelvin Banks, Devin Campbell, and Cole Hudson are 3 guys that we've singled out. Spring, I mean, listen, they couldn't even have a legitimate spring game because they didn't have enough offensive line depth. So obviously multiple true freshmen are going to help here. Hudson and Campbell, at least one of them is going to grab a starting guard spot. I think Banks is probably going to end up starting at a tackle position eventually, if not immediately. It's just one of my favorite phrases when we're talking about true freshmen. Remember Kelvin Banks now, that was the kid who initially made big waves when he committed to Oregon, but Texas ends up landing him. Don't overlook that. Everyone talks about line of scrimmage. Texas needs to improve along the line of scrimmage. Well, they did. in this last class. They did as much as they could. They got the kids to sign, and now they enroll, and now you've eventually got to develop them. I think all three of them will end up seeing the field in some capacity this year, at least two of them probably as starters. Jayshawn Barham, I didn't even know the pronunciation on the last name, is a kid that signed with Maryland. And I know we don't talk about Maryland a lot, but Hummer pointed this kid out, and I think we need to point him out too. He's a guy at a linebacker position that was already depleted for Maryland, and they weren't all that great at linebacker last year anyway. He was 119 overall in the 24/7 Sports composite rankings. Really good tackler. Played outside in high school. I think they want to shift him down inside at the college level, but also really good sideline-to-sideline speed. Probably kind of like Walter Nolan, advanced technically. So Jayshawn Barham is a guy that at 6'3", 230, physically is ready to play at the college level. He probably will be a day one starter for Maryland. And Maryland, even if you don't expect them to contend this year, you know the conference they play in. Therefore, you know a lot of the opponents that they will draw throughout the year. So there's a lot of opportunity for you to see Jayshawn Barham on your screen this year. And Keonta Goodwin is the last one I wanted to touch on. That's the number 6 offensive tackle overall in the class, 38th overall rated player. Ended up signing with Kentucky. And this was a big deal. Remember, we had him on the signing day show. He was choosing between, I think, Michigan State and Kentucky. So he chooses Kentucky. 6'8", 335 is what he's at right now. But you see what his height weight was when he kind of enrolled. It was 6'8", 355. Just a massive human being. Side note, that guy was walking down a high school hallway 6 months ago. Should be right now. He early enrolled. Should be in high school right now. How do you get that big in high school? I don't know. Anyway, Kentucky's replacing both tackles. So Keonta Goodwin, he was running with the 2s in spring. There are very high hopes within that staff, obviously, that he can eventually secure one of the starting tackle spots. And selfishly, I hope so as well. Kentucky is kind of like the NC State of the SEC. They're sitting there. They're not going to get a ton of national acclaim year one, but they are, a couple of upsets away from doing some special things. Keonta Goodwin is, if they do that, probably going to be one of the true freshmen that plays a big role in that. So those are at least, 6, 7, or 8 more true freshmen to keep an eye on.